I spent 8 years learning everything about Down syndrome, researching therapies, fighting for inclusion, turning my daughter Emma into the confident, brilliant little girl she was meant to be. But my mother, Patricia, she would pull Emma aside at family gatherings, whispering harsh corrections about her speech, her mannerisms, calling her behavior inappropriate for company, while bragging endlessly about my brother Michael's neurotypical children and their academic achievements. At her 40th wedding anniversary celebration, she didn't just ignore Emma's accomplishments. But before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. She handed me a separate kids' table in the back corner, away from the main celebration, saying, "Keep Emma quiet back there where she won't disturb the important guests or embarrass the family." Right there, with 50 family friends and relatives watching, she tried to hide my daughter like a shameful secret. What she didn't expect was Dr. Amanda Foster, a renowned pediatric developmental specialist, sitting at the table next to us, about to witness something that would flip my mother's world completely upside down and expose who was really the embarrassment to this family. Ever stood up for someone you love against people who should have known better? Drop your story in the comments below.
Corrections delivered in whispered tones that somehow managed to be more cutting than shouted criticism. David tried to shield Emma from the worst of it, distracting her during particularly tense moments, engaging her in conversations about her interests when Patricia's disapproval became too obvious to ignore. But Emma was intuitive, emotionally intelligent in ways that often surprised adults who underestimated her cognitive abilities. She began asking why Grandma Patricia seemed angry with her, why Tyler and Madison got special attention while she got hurried acknowledgments, why family gatherings made Mommy sad afterward. These conversations broke my heart because I had no adequate explanation for adult behavior that was fundamentally inexplicable. How do you tell an 8-year-old that her grandmother is ashamed of her existence? How do you explain that some people value appearances over authentic human connection? How do you protect a child's self-esteem when family members treat her like a burden rather than a blessing? The tension escalated over months of family gatherings, where Patricia's disapproval became increasingly obvious and hurtful. She would make comments about Emma's table manners, her volume level, her tendency to initiate conversations with adults who were discussing serious matters. She would suggest that Emma might be overwhelmed by adult gatherings and would be more comfortable staying home with a babysitter. She would praise Tyler and Madison's achievements while completely ignoring Emma's report cards, artwork, or excited descriptions of school projects. The breaking point came when Patricia announced her 40th wedding anniversary celebration, planned for late May at the Pinedale Country Club. She had invited 200 guests, including extended family, longtime friends, business associates, and prominent figures from Denver society. The event would feature a formal dinner, dancing, speeches, and what Patricia described as a celebration of 4 decades of marriage and family success. I offered to help with planning, thinking this might be an opportunity for Emma to be included meaningfully in a family celebration. Emma loved parties, enjoyed dressing up, and had been practicing social skills that would make her a delightful addition to any gathering. She could introduce herself confidently, ask appropriate questions about others' interests, and display the kind of genuine warmth and curiosity that made adults light up when they experience authentic connection with a child. Patricia's response was swift and brutal. "Rachel, this is a sophisticated adult event. Emma would be out of place among people who are expecting elegant conversation and refined behavior. I think it would be better for everyone if she stayed home this time." When I protested that Emma was family and deserved to be included in family celebrations, Patricia's voice took on that steel-edged tone that had intimidated me since childhood. "Not everything is about Emma's needs, Rachel. Some occasions require thinking about what's appropriate for the broader group." The conversation revealed everything I needed to understand about Patricia's true feelings toward my daughter. Emma wasn't just different in Patricia's eyes, she was deficient, inappropriate, an embarrassment that needed to be hidden from public view to protect the family's reputation. Patricia viewed Emma's disability as a reflection of some failure on my part, some inability to produce the kind of grandchild worthy of display in her social circles. But I had learned something during 8 years of advocating for Emma that Patricia would never understand. My daughter's worth wasn't determined by other people's comfort levels or social expectations. Emma had taught me that authentic value comes from character, kindness, resilience, and the courage to be yourself in a world that often demands conformity. She had shown me that intelligence takes many forms, that success can't be measured by traditional metrics alone, and that the people who truly matter will recognize and celebrate differences rather than demanding their elimination. The anniversary celebration was still weeks away, but I knew this would be our defining moment. Patricia had spent years trying to diminish Emma's place in our family, treating her like an afterthought whose needs and feelings were secondary to maintaining appearances. She had enabled Michael's silence, my father's passive complicity, and a family dynamic where authentic love was conditional on meeting narrow standards of acceptability. Lisa Chen, my best friend since college and Emma's honorary aunt, had watched this family dysfunction unfold with growing frustration and anger. Lisa worked as a social worker specializing in disability rights, so she understood both the systemic barriers Emma faced in the broader world and the additional trauma inflicted by family members who should have been her fiercest advocates and protectors. "Rachel, you cannot let Patricia hide Emma at this anniversary party," Lisa said during one of our weekly coffee meetings at the Starbucks on South University Boulevard. "Emma is 8 years old. She's going to internalize the message that she's shameful, that she doesn't belong in her own family. You have to draw a line somewhere, and this feels like the moment." Lisa's words hit me with the force of truth I had been avoiding. I had spent years making accommodations, accepting compromises, trying to keep peace in a family system that demanded Emma's diminishment as the price of admission. But what kind of mother protects family harmony at her daughter's expense? What kind of advocate allows the people who should love Emma unconditionally to treat her like an embarrassing secret? Emma deserved better from all of us, but especially for me as her primary protector and champion in a world that already presented enough challenges without adding family rejection to the burden she would carry. The anniversary celebration approached like an inevitable confrontation, a moment when all the accumulated tension, resentment, and fundamental disagreement about Emma's value would finally explode into open conflict that no longer could be smoothed over with polite deflection and careful avoidance of difficult conversations. The anniversary planning consumed Patricia's attention for weeks, transforming our family gatherings into strategic sessions where every detail was scrutinized for its potential impact on her social standing. She hired Elena Rodriguez from Premier Events Denver, a wedding planner who specialized in high society celebrations, to coordinate everything from the imported Italian linens to the string quartet that would perform during cocktail hour. Patricia's vision extended far beyond a simple family celebration. This was her opportunity to showcase 4 decades of marriage as a testament to her own success in creating.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Maintaining the kind of life that inspired envy and admiration from her peer group at the Pinedale Country Club. David and I received our formal invitation in the mail 3 weeks before the event, printed on heavy cardstock with gold embossing that announced the celebration's importance through sheer material expense. The invitation specified formal attire, cocktail hour beginning at 6, dinner at 7:30, and dancing until midnight. A handwritten note from Patricia was tucked inside the envelope, written in her precise cursive on personal stationery that featured her monogram in raised lettering. "Rachel and David, we're so excited to celebrate with family and friends who have been part of our journey. Please let me know if you need recommendations for appropriate attire for the occasion. Love, Mother." The note's subtext was unmistakable.
Patricia was reminding us that this event operated according to her standards, her definition of appropriate, her expectations for behavior that wouldn't embarrass her in front of people whose opinions mattered to her social positioning. David read the note with barely concealed frustration, recognizing the implied criticism and conditional acceptance that had characterized Patricia's relationship with our family since Emma's birth. "She's already setting the stage for Emma to be the problem," he said, dropping the invitation onto our kitchen counter with more force than necessary. I called Patricia the next morning to confirm our attendance and address the elephant in the room that no one in our family seemed willing to discuss directly. "Mom, we're looking forward to celebrating with you and Dad. Emma's excited about the party too. She's been practicing her party manners and can't wait to wear the new dress we bought for her." The silence on the other end of the line stretched uncomfortably long before Patricia cleared her throat and responded with the kind of careful diplomacy that preceded devastating pronouncements. "Rachel, I've been thinking about the guest list and the nature of the celebration. Many of our friends haven't spent time around children with special needs, and I'm concerned about potential situations that might arise. Would you consider having Emma stay with a babysitter that evening? I know a wonderful girl who sits for the Hendersons' grandchildren when they're in town." Patricia's suggestion was delivered in the tone she reserved for reasonable requests. The situation that followed revealed the depth of Patricia's fundamental misunderstanding about Emma's capabilities, her place in our family, and my willingness to accept exclusion as the price of her approval. "Mom, Emma is your granddaughter. This is a family celebration. She belongs there with all of us." Patricia's response came swiftly, her voice taking on the edge that signaled her transition from diplomacy to directive mode. "Rachel, you're being unrealistic about Emma's limitations and how they affect other people. This is an important event for your father and me. I need to know that everything will go smoothly." That phrase, Emma's limitations, crystallized everything wrong with Patricia's perspective on my daughter's life and potential. Emma's limitations were largely constructed by other people's discomfort, low expectations, and refusal to create inclusive environments where she could demonstrate her actual capabilities. Her intellectual disability created some genuine challenges with processing speed, abstract thinking, and complex problem solving. But her supposed social limitations were primarily the result of people who assumed she couldn't engage meaningfully in conversations, contribute positively to group dynamics, or behave appropriately in formal settings. Emma's teachers at Sunrise Elementary had spent 3 years documenting her social strengths, her ability to connect with peers and adults, her intuitive understanding of emotional dynamics that often exceeded that of neurotypical children her age. Mrs. Rodriguez regularly sent home notes describing Emma's helpfulness in the classroom, her kindness toward classmates who were struggling, her ability to diffuse conflicts through humor and empathy that seemed to come naturally to her. These weren't accommodations or special considerations. These were genuine social skills that Emma had developed through the same trial and error process that all children experience as they learn to navigate human relationships. But Patricia had never witnessed these interactions because she had never created opportunities for Emma to demonstrate her capabilities. Family gatherings were structured around adult conversations that excluded children generally, with Tyler and Madison earning inclusion through academic achievements that impressed the adults and secured their position as worthy contributors to family discussions. Emma's different communication style, her need for slightly more processing time, her tendency toward literal interpretation of complex social cues were interpreted by Patricia as evidence of inherent social deficits, rather than variations in neurological development that required patience and understanding rather than exclusion. The phone conversation ended with Patricia's ultimatum, delivered in the calm, reasonable tone that made her pronouncement seem inevitable rather than negotiable. "Rachel, I'm not trying to hurt Emma's feelings. I'm trying to protect her from a situation where she might feel overwhelmed or out of place. Adult parties can be very stimulating environments for children with sensory processing issues. Wouldn't she be more comfortable in familiar surroundings with activities designed for her developmental level?" Patricia's concern trolling was masterful, framing Emma's exclusion as protection rather than rejection, positioning herself as the thoughtful grandmother who understood Emma's needs better than her own parents did. This rhetorical strategy allowed Patricia to maintain her self-image as a caring family matriarch while ensuring that Emma's presence wouldn't complicate her carefully orchestrated social performance. The conversation left me furious, but also strategically minded. Patricia had shown her cards, now I needed to decide how to play mine. David's reaction to Patricia's ultimatum was immediate and unambiguous. We don't go if Emma doesn't go. End of discussion. His loyalty to Emma had been unwavering from the moment of her diagnosis when he held her in the hospital and promised her that she would never face the world's challenges alone. David had attended every therapy session, every IEP meeting, every school event where Emma performed or received recognition. He had learned to braid her hair, to help with homework that required patience and creativity, to advocate fiercely for her inclusion in activities where others assumed she didn't belong.
Married into this dysfunction, couldn't fully appreciate. Boycotting Patricia's anniversary celebration would be interpreted as confirmation that Emma was indeed too problematic for family inclusion, that our unreasonable demands for acceptance were more important than family harmony. Patricia would share our absence with her guests as evidence of our inability to make reasonable compromises for family occasions. She would position herself as the victim of our stubbornness, the reasonable grandmother whose olive branch was rejected by difficult children who prioritized their own agenda over family unity. More importantly, Emma would learn that when faced with rejection, we retreated rather than fought for her place in spaces where she belonged. 8 years old was too young for Emma to understand the complex adult politics driving these decisions. But she was old enough to internalize the message that some places, some celebrations, some moments of family joy were not meant for her. I couldn't allow Patricia's discomfort to teach Emma that her differences made her unwelcome in her own family. Lisa's perspective on the situation was characteristically direct and strategically sound. Patricia is betting that you'll back down to avoid confrontation. She's counting on your desire to keep peace being stronger than your commitment to Emma's dignity. You have to show up, Rachel. You have to bring Emma and let Patricia deal with the consequences of her own prejudice in front of her fancy friends. Lisa understood that this wasn't really about one party or one evening. This was about establishing Emma's permanent place in family narratives, family celebrations, family identity. The weeks leading up to the anniversary celebration became a period of intensive preparation, not just for the social demands of the event, but for the emotional and strategic challenges we knew we would face. Emma's excitement about the party was infectious and heartbreaking simultaneously. She talked constantly about seeing Grandpa Robert, about wearing her new purple dress with the sparkly belt, about dancing with Daddy, and maybe with Tyler if he would dance with her. Her anticipation was pure and joyful, untainted by awareness of the adult conflicts swirling around her inclusion. Emma and I practiced formal dining etiquette using our good china during dinner at home. She learned to wait for everyone to be served before beginning to eat, to place her napkin in her lap, to use her inside voice even when she was excited about something. These weren't accommodations for her disability. These were social skills that all children need to learn for formal occasions, skills that Emma mastered quickly because she was motivated by the opportunity to participate in something important to our family. We also practiced conversation skills that would help Emma navigate interactions with adults who might not know how to engage with a child with Down syndrome. Emma learned to introduce herself clearly, to ask polite questions about other people's interests, to share information about her own activities and achievements in ways that invited further conversation rather than ending interaction. These practice sessions revealed Emma's natural social intelligence, her genuine curiosity about other people, and her ability to connect authentically with adults who approached her with openness rather than preconceived limitations. Patricia called twice during this preparation period, ostensibly to discuss logistical details, but actually to probe whether we had reconsidered our position on Emma's attendance. Rachel, I've been thinking about seating arrangements, and I'm wondering if it would be easier for everyone if Emma sat at the children's table with Tyler and Madison. Some of the adult conversation might be over her head anyway. This suggestion revealed Patricia's continued failure to understand that Emma's intellectual disability didn't prevent her from enjoying adult company or contributing meaningfully to conversations when people included her appropriately. The children's table suggestion was particularly insulting because Tyler and Madison, at 12 and 10, were only slightly older than Emma, but were regularly included in adult conversations at family gatherings because their academic achievements earned them status as worthy contributors to family discussions. Emma's exclusion from adult conversation wasn't based on her chronological age, but on Patricia's assumption that her disability rendered her incapable of meaningful social interaction with sophisticated adults. My response to Patricia's seating suggestion was firm but diplomatic. Mom, Emma enjoys talking with adults and has good social skills for formal occasions. We'll sit together as a family, and I'm confident she'll be a delightful addition to whatever table you assign us. Patricia's silence communicated her displeasure with my refusal to accept the segregation she was offering as a reasonable compromise. The final phone conversation before the anniversary celebration occurred 3 days prior to the event, when Patricia made one last attempt to secure Emma's exclusion through emotional manipulation rather than direct confrontation. Rachel, I had lunch with Eleanor Hastings yesterday, and she mentioned that her grandson with autism gets very overwhelmed at large gatherings. She said they've learned it's kinder to leave him with caregivers who understand his needs rather than forcing him into situations that cause distress. I thought that was such wise parenting. Patricia's comparison of Emma to Eleanor Hastings' grandson was calculated to trigger my protective instincts while positioning exclusion as the compassionate choice that demonstrated superior parenting rather than capitulation to social pressure. The suggestion that bringing Emma to the anniversary celebration would constitute forcing her into distressing situations revealed Patricia's complete misunderstanding of Emma's personality, her social preferences, and her actual needs, rather than the projected limitations that adults imposed on her. Emma loved parties, celebrations, and opportunities to dress up and interact with new people. Her disability didn't create social anxiety or sensory overwhelm in party environments. Her challenges were primarily cognitive, affecting her processing speed and abstract reasoning skills, not her fundamental enjoyment of social interaction or her ability to behave appropriately in formal settings when provided with clear expectations and supportive inclusion. My response to Patricia's emotional manipulation was direct and final. Mom, Emma is excited about celebrating with you and Dad. She's been looking forward to this party for weeks. We'll see you Saturday evening. Patricia's sharp intake of breath communicated her realization that her campaign to secure Emma's exclusion had completely failed. The anniversary celebration would proceed with Emma in attendance, regardless of
Patricia's discomfort or her concerns about maintaining perfect social optics in front of her country club friends. The 3 days between that final conversation and the anniversary celebration passed with mounting tension on both sides. Patricia was undoubtedly strategizing damage control, preparing explanations for Emma's presence that would minimize embarrassment while maintaining her image as a loving grandmother who made the best of challenging circumstances. I was preparing for battle, knowing that Patricia would not simply accept defeat, but would use the evening itself to demonstrate why Emma's inclusion had been a mistake from the beginning. David took Friday off work so we could spend the day helping Emma prepare for the celebration in ways that would maximize her confidence and minimize Patricia's ability to find fault with her behavior or appearance. We had her hair professionally styled at the salon where I got my own hair done, allowing Emma to experience the luxury treatment that signaled the importance of the occasion. The stylist, Monica, was wonderful with Emma, explaining each step of the process and creating an elegant updo that made Emma feel like a princess preparing for a royal ball. Emma's dress was perfect for the occasion, a deep purple with subtle sparkles that caught the light without being overly flashy or inappropriate for a formal adult event. The dress had been expensive, purchased specifically for this celebration because I wanted Emma to look as elegant and appropriate as any guest at Patricia's anniversary party. David's suit was pressed and ready, my own dress selected to complement Emma's while maintaining the sophisticated adult appearance that Patricia's guest list would expect. Friday evening was spent in final preparations and conversations designed to help Emma understand what to expect at the anniversary celebration. We talked about the different parts of the evening,
The cocktail hour, where adults would stand around talking while servers passed appetizers, the formal dinner with multiple courses and speeches, the dancing that would follow. Emma was particularly excited about the dancing, having practiced with David in our living room to music from her iPad playlist. We also discussed potential challenges Emma might encounter, not because of her disability, but because of the social dynamics we anticipated from adults who might not know how to interact with her appropriately. Emma learned phrases she could use if someone spoke to her in ways that felt condescending or inappropriate, polite ways to redirect conversations that made her uncomfortable, and signals she could give us if she needed support or wanted to move to a different part of the celebration. These preparations weren't accommodations for Emma's disability, they were strategic planning for a social minefield that we knew Patricia had prepared for us. Conscious preparation for an evening where Emma's every word, gesture, and interaction would be scrutinized for evidence that her inclusion had been inappropriate from the beginning. Emma approached these preparations with the seriousness and excitement of a child who understood that something important was happening, that she had a role to play in a family celebration that mattered to people she loved. Saturday morning dawned clear and warm, perfect weather for an evening celebration that would take place partially on the Pinedale Country Club's terrace, overlooking the golf course and mountain views that made Denver such a desirable location for people with the resources to access its most exclusive venues. Emma woke up excited, immediately asking if it was time to get dressed for Grandma and Grandpa's party. Her enthusiasm was infectious and heartbreaking, pure joy untainted by awareness of the adult conflicts that would shape her experience of the evening ahead. The day passed slowly, filled with final preparations and mounting anticipation. Emma practiced her party manners one more time, demonstrating her ability to shake hands politely, to say please and thank you appropriately, to engage in the kind of social interaction that would be expected at an elegant adult celebration. Her excitement built throughout the day as the time for departure approached. Her anticipation focused on seeing family members, meeting new people, and participating in what she understood to be an important celebration of her grandparents' marriage and life together. As we prepared to leave for the Pinedale Country Club, I looked at Emma in her beautiful dress, her hair perfectly styled, her face glowing with excitement about the evening ahead, and I felt a fierce surge of protective love, mixed with determination to fight for her place in spaces where she belonged. Patricia had spent weeks trying to exclude Emma from this celebration, positioning her granddaughter's disability as incompatible with sophisticated adult social interaction. Tonight would prove definitively who was truly embarrassing to our family, and it wouldn't be the 8-year-old girl whose only crime was experiencing the world through a neurological framework that required patience and understanding rather than rejection and exclusion. The drive to the Pinedale Country Club took 20 minutes through Denver's most affluent neighborhoods, past houses that represented the kind of wealth and social status that Patricia valued above authentic human connection. Emma pressed her face against the car window, marveling at the size of the houses and the manicured landscapes that demonstrated their owners' resources and aesthetic priorities. Her wonder was genuine and sweet, untainted by the complex adult emotions that colored David and Mai's perception of this world, where appearances mattered more than character and social performance trumped authentic relationship. The country club itself was impressive in the way that exclusive venues always are, designed to communicate status and sophistication through architectural details that whispered rather than shouted their expense and exclusivity. Valet parking, doormen in formal uniforms, marble floors that reflected crystal chandeliers, flower arrangements that cost more than many families spend on groceries in a month. This was Patricia's world, the environment where she felt most comfortable and validated, surrounded by people who shared her values and priorities. Emma's reaction to the country club's elegance was exactly what I had hoped for and expected. She was impressed but not intimidated, excited but not overwhelmed, ready to participate in the celebration while maintaining the good behavior and social skills we had practiced during weeks of preparation.
As we walked through the club's entrance toward the private dining room where Patricia's anniversary celebration would take place, Emma held herself with dignity and confidence that would have made any
grandmother proud to claim her as family. The moment we entered the private dining room at the Pinedale Country Club, I could see Patricia's carefully orchestrated social theater in full display. Crystal stemware caught the light from multiple chandeliers, creating prisms that danced across ivory tablecloths adorned with centerpieces of white roses and baby's breath that must have cost a fortune to import and arrange. Patricia herself stood near the entrance in a navy blue designer gown that probably cost more than our mortgage payment, greeting guests with the practiced grace of someone who had spent decades perfecting the art of elegant hostessing. Her smile faltered almost imperceptibly when she saw us approaching, her eyes immediately moving to Emma with an expression that mixed resignation with barely concealed irritation. Patricia had clearly hoped until the very last moment that we would reconsider Emma's attendance, that common sense would prevail and we would spare her the complications that our daughter's presence might create among her carefully curated guest list. The fact that we had arrived as planned, with Emma looking absolutely radiant in her purple dress, represented a direct challenge to Patricia's authority and her vision of how this celebration should unfold. "Rachel, David, how lovely that you could make it," Patricia said, her voice carrying the kind of forced warmth that fooled no one but maintained plausible deniability about her true feelings. She bent down slightly toward Emma, her movements stiff and uncomfortable, clearly uncertain about how to interact with her granddaughter in front of guests, who are watching this family dynamic with curious interest. "Emma, don't you look pretty tonight? Now, I want you to stay close to your parents and remember to use your quiet voice, because this is a very special grown-up party." Emma's response was exactly what we had practiced during our weeks of preparation. Polite and appropriate, but also confident in ways that demonstrated her social competence, rather than the limitations Patricia expected to see. "Thank you, Grandma Patricia. I'm so excited to celebrate your anniversary with Grandpa Robert. 40 years of marriage is really special, and Mommy told me how much you love each other and how proud you are of your family." Emma's words were delivered clearly, with appropriate volume and genuine warmth that would have charmed any reasonable adult. But Patricia's reaction revealed everything about her fundamental misunderstanding of Emma's capabilities and her determination to find problems regardless of how well Emma performed. "That's very sweet, dear. Now, your parents will help you find your seats, and I need to greet some other guests." Patricia's dismissal was swift and final, her attention already turning toward the next arriving couple, as though Emma had ceased to exist the moment social politeness allowed for disengagement. The seating arrangement Patricia had devised told its own story about family hierarchy and her expectations for the evening's social dynamics. Michael and Jennifer were seated at the head table with Patricia and Robert, positioned as the honored family members whose presence enhanced rather than complicated the celebration. Tyler and Madison were at a nearby table with other family friends who had children, included in the main social flow of the evening because their behavior and conversational abilities met Patricia's standards for public display. David, Emma, and I were assigned to a table in the back corner of the room, as far from the head table as the venue's layout would allow. Our table mates were people I didn't recognize, couples who seemed pleasant enough, but who were clearly among the less important guests in Patricia's social hierarchy. The positioning was deliberate and insulting, communicating Patricia's belief that our family unit, specifically Emma's presence within it, required geographic isolation from the celebration's center of social and emotional gravity. Emma noticed the seating arrangement immediately, her emotional intelligence picking up on the social dynamics that adults often tried to hide behind polite facades. "Mommy, why are we sitting so far away from Grandma and Grandpa? I thought this was their party." Emma's question was innocent but penetrating, cutting through the adult pretenses to identify the fundamental unfairness of Patricia's strategic positioning. David's jaw tightened as he processed the deliberate slight, but he kept his voice calm and reassuring when he responded to Emma's observation. "Sometimes at big parties, people get seated in different places so everyone can meet new friends.
We're going to have fun wherever we sit, and we'll see Grandma and Grandpa during the party." David's explanation protected Emma from understanding the full implications of Patricia's seating choices, while acknowledging that something was indeed different about our placement in the room's social geography. Our table mates introduced themselves as the evening's cocktail hour began, and I was pleasantly surprised to discover that they were genuinely interesting people whose company may actually make the evening enjoyable despite Patricia's attempts to isolate us. Jim and Susan Crawford owned a small art gallery in downtown Denver and were passionate advocates for local artists in community cultural programs. Mark and Lisa Thompson were both teachers at Denver Public Schools who spent their free time volunteering with literacy programs and after-school activities for children from low-income families. Most importantly, Dr. Amanda Foster was seated directly across from us, a woman whose presence would prove to be far more significant than any of us could have anticipated in those early moments of the celebration. Dr. Foster was a pediatric developmental specialist at Children's Hospital Colorado, one of the nation's leading experts in Down syndrome and intellectual disabilities. She had been invited to the anniversary celebration because her husband, Robert Foster, was Patricia's financial advisor, managing the investments that funded Patricia's elegant lifestyle and philanthropic activities. Dr. Foster's reaction to Emma was immediate and genuinely positive, the kind of authentic engagement that Emma rarely received from Patricia's social circle. "Hello, Emma. I love your dress. That purple color is absolutely beautiful on you. I'm Dr. Foster, but you can call me Amanda if that's easier. Are you excited about your grandparents' party?" Dr. Foster's tone was respectful and age-appropriate, treating Emma as a complete person rather than a problem to be managed or a limitation to be accommodated. Emma responded with confidence and social grace that emerged when adults treated her with genuine respect and interest. "Hi, Dr. Amanda. Thank you for saying nice things about my dress. I picked it out myself because purple
Is my favorite color, and I wanted to look really pretty for Grandma and Grandpa's special day. I've never been to a party at a country club before, so everything looks very fancy and exciting." Emma's response demonstrated her ability to engage in reciprocal conversation, to share personal information appropriately, and to express genuine enthusiasm without crossing boundaries of volume or attention-seeking behavior. Dr. Foster's professional expertise allowed her to recognize immediately that Emma's communication skills, social awareness, and behavioral presentation were far more sophisticated than many adults expected from children with Down syndrome. "You made an excellent choice with that dress, Emma. And you're right that this is a very fancy place. Have you ever seen such big chandeliers before? I always feel like I'm in a palace when I come to parties here." Dr. Foster's conversation with Emma was natural and engaging, treating my daughter as an interesting person rather than a medical condition or social challenge. The contrast between Dr. Foster's immediate acceptance of Emma and Patricia's calculated distance became more apparent as the cocktail hour progressed. Patricia moved through the room with practiced elegance, stopping at each table to greet guests and ensure that everyone felt welcomed and appreciated. When she reached our table, her interactions with the other adults were warm and genuine, asking about their work, their families, their recent travels or activities. She thanked Jim and Susan for their support of Denver's cultural community, complimented Mark and Lisa on their dedication to education, and spent several minutes discussing investment strategies with Dr. Foster's husband. But when Patricia's attention turned to Emma, her demeanor shifted almost imperceptibly toward the kind of patronizing politeness that adults often used with children they considered burdensome or problematic. "Emma, are you being good for your parents? Remember what I said about using your quiet voice? This is a very special night for Grandpa and me, so I need you to be on your best behavior." Patricia's words were delivered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her tone carrying implications that Emma was naturally inclined toward inappropriate behavior that required constant monitoring and correction. Dr. Foster's reaction to Patricia's interaction with Emma was subtle, but professionally informed, I could see her observing the family dynamics with the clinical eye of someone who had spent years working with families navigating disability, inclusion, and the complex social challenges that arose when children with intellectual differences encountered environments designed for a neurotypical development. Dr. Foster said nothing in the moment, but her expression suggested that she was processing information about Emma's actual capabilities versus the limitations that Patricia seemed determined to impose on her granddaughter's social participation. Emma handled Patricia's conditional approval with grace that would have impressed anyone paying attention to her actual behavior rather than their preconceived assumptions about her limitations. "I'm having a wonderful time, Grandma Patricia. Everyone at our table is very nice, and Dr. Amanda has been telling me about her work at the hospital where she helps children. I've been using my inside voice just like Mommy and Daddy taught me." Emma's response was perfect, demonstrating both respect for Patricia's expectations and confidence in her own ability to meet behavioral standards appropriate for the occasion. Patricia's smile became more strained as Emma's articulate response challenged the narrative of potential behavioral problems that justified the seating arrangement and conditional acceptance. "That's very good, dear. Dr. Foster, I hope Emma isn't bothering you with too many questions. She can be quite chatty when she gets excited." Patricia's comment was designed to apologize preemptively for Emma's social engagement, positioning her granddaughter's natural curiosity and communication as problems that required adult tolerance rather than genuine interaction. Dr. Foster's reaction was immediate and unambiguous, her professional authority lending weight to her defense of Emma's social contributions. "Actually, Patricia, Emma has been delightful company. She's asking thoughtful questions about my work and sharing interesting observations about the party. Her communication skills are really quite impressive, and her curiosity about other people's experiences shows excellent social awareness." Dr. Foster's words carried the implicit criticism of Patricia's assumptions while highlighting Emma's actual strengths and capabilities. The tension that followed Dr. Foster's comments was palpable. Patricia's carefully constructed social performance suddenly challenged by an expert whose professional opinion carried more weight than family politics or social prejudices. Patricia's response revealed her inability to process positive assessments of Emma that contradicted her fundamental beliefs about intellectual disability and social appropriateness. "Well, that's very kind of you to say. We're always working on Emma's social skills, aren't we, Rachel?" That phrase, "working on Emma's social skills," crystallized everything wrong with Patricia's approach to her granddaughter's development and inclusion. Emma didn't need to work on social skills in the way Patricia implied. She needed adults who recognized her existing capabilities and created opportunities for her to demonstrate and expand those skills through authentic social interaction rather than segregation and conditional acceptance based on meeting impossible standards of normalcy. Dr. Foster's professional insight allowed her to recognize the family dynamics playing out at our table, the way Patricia's low expectations and anxiety about social judgment were creating unnecessary barriers to Emma's full participation in family celebrations. Throughout the cocktail hour, Dr. Foster engaged Emma in conversations about her school experiences, her favorite activities, her friendships, and interests. These interactions revealed Emma's intelligence, humor, empathy, and social competence to anyone paying attention to her actual words and behaviors, rather than their assumptions about intellectual disability. Emma told Dr. Foster about her reading progress, describing the chapter books she was enjoying, and the way Mrs. Rodriguez helped her understand difficult vocabulary through context clues and picture associations. She shared stories about her friendships at school, the way she helped classmates who were struggling with assignments, her role as a peer mediator in playground conflicts, where her natural empathy and conflict resolution skills made her particularly effective. She talked about her participation in the school choir, her swimming lessons at the community center, her excitement about learning to ride a two-wheeled bicycle with David's patient instruction. These conversations painted a picture of a child whose life was full, engaging, and developmentally appropriate.
whose intellectual disability created some learning challenges, but didn't prevent meaningful social connection, academic progress, or age-appropriate activities and friendships. Dr. Foster's questions and responses treated Emma as a complete person with interesting experiences and valuable perspectives. Exactly the kind of interaction that allowed Emma to shine socially when given the opportunity. Meanwhile, Patricia's increasing discomfort with Dr. Foster's positive engagement with Emma became more apparent as the cocktail hour progressed. Patricia had clearly expected Emma to demonstrate behavioral problems or social awkwardness that would justify her seating arrangement and validate her concerns about inclusion. Instead, Emma was charming everyone at our table with her genuine warmth, appropriate curiosity, and articulate communication that challenged every assumption Patricia had made about intellectual disability and social competence. The other guests at our table were equally impressed with Emma's social contributions to their evening's experience. Jim and Susan Crawford discovered Emma's interest in art and spent time describing their gallery's mission to showcase local artists whose work might not find venues in more commercial spaces. Emma's questions about the artistic process, her descriptions of her own art projects at school, and her enthusiasm for creative expression engaged them in ways that transcended any concerns about intellectual differences or developmental disabilities. Mark and Lisa Thompson, both experienced educators, recognized immediately that Emma's communication skills, social awareness, and emotional intelligence were well developed and age-appropriate, requiring no special accommodations or modified expectations for formal social interaction. Lisa commented to me during a quiet moment that Emma's empathy and social intuition reminded her of the most emotionally intelligent students she encountered in her teaching career, children who seemed naturally gifted at understanding and responding to other people's emotional needs. As the cocktail hour transitioned toward the formal dinner service, Patricia made her rounds to each table again, ostensibly checking on her guests' comfort, but actually monitoring Emma's behavior for evidence of the problems she had predicted and used to justify our isolation from the celebration's social center. Patricia's disappointment in Emma's excellent behavior was almost comically obvious, her increasing frustration with the lack of validation for her prejudices becoming harder to disguise behind polite hostess duties. Dr. Foster observed these family dynamics with growing professional concern, recognizing patterns of family rejection and conditional acceptance that she had seen in her clinical practice with devastating effects on children's self-esteem, social development, and long-term outcomes. During a brief moment when Patricia was focused on other guests, Dr. Foster leaned toward me and spoke quietly about what she was observing. Emma is a remarkable child, Rachel. Her social skills, emotional intelligence, and communication abilities are really impressive. I hope you know how lucky you are to have such a wonderful daughter. Dr. Foster's words meant more to me than she could possibly have understood, representing professional validation from an expert whose opinion carried weight in ways that Patricia's social prejudices never could. But more than validation, Dr. Foster's comments suggested that she was seeing something in our family dynamics that troubled her professionally, patterns of exclusion and conditional acceptance that she recognized as harmful to Emma's development and well-being. The formal dinner service began with Patricia's welcoming speech, delivered from the head table with the microphone that ensured her words would reach every corner of the elegant dining room. Patricia thanked her guests for sharing this special evening, spoke eloquently about 40 years of marriage and family growth, and highlighted the achievements and contributions of family members who had brought honor and pride to the Hoffman name over 4 decades of celebrations, challenges, and shared experiences. Michael's law career received extended praise, his professional achievements and community involvement described in detail that demonstrated Patricia's pride in his success and social contribution. Tyler and Madison's academic excellence, athletic achievements, and leadership potential were celebrated as evidence of the family's continued commitment to excellence and high achievement. Jennifer's volunteer work with various charitable organizations earned recognition for her dedication to community service and social responsibility.
Emma was not mentioned in Patricia's speech celebrating family achievements and contributions over 4 decades of marriage and shared experiences. The omission was deliberate and painful, communicating to everyone present that some family members were worthy of public recognition, while others were better left unacknowledged in formal celebrations of family pride and accomplishment. Emma sat quietly beside me during Patricia's speech, her hands folded politely in her lap, her expression showing confusion about why her name hadn't been included in the celebration of family members who made Grandma and Grandpa proud. Dr. Foster's reaction to Patricia's speech was immediate and professionally informed, her expression revealing recognition of family dynamics that she had encountered in her clinical practice with harmful effects on children's emotional development and family relationships. The omission of Emma from Patricia's celebration of family achievements and contributions was not merely oversight or time constraints. It was systematic exclusion based on prejudices about intellectual disability that Dr. Foster recognized as emotionally damaging and socially unjust. The formal dinner service proceeded with the kind of orchestrated elegance that Patricia had spent months planning, each course arriving with perfect timing, while soft classical music provided an understated backdrop for conversation among the 200 guests who represented 4 decades of Patricia's carefully cultivated social connections. Emma navigated the formal dining protocols with grace that would have impressed anyone paying attention to her actual behavior rather than their preconceived assumptions about her capabilities. She waited patiently for each course to be served, used her silverware appropriately, and engaged in quiet conversation with our table mates without any of the behavioral problems Patricia had predicted to justify her exclusion. Dr. Foster continued her genuine engagement with Emma throughout the dinner.
Service, asking about her favorite subjects at school, her friendships, her participation in various activities that demonstrated the full, rich life she was living despite Patricia's attempts to minimize her accomplishments and potential. Emma described her role in the school's upcoming spring concert, where she would be singing a solo verse that Mrs. Rodriguez had specifically arranged to showcase Emma's clear, sweet voice and her ability to memorize complex lyrics and deliver them with emotional expression that moved audiences to tears. The contrast between Emma's actual capabilities and the limitations Patricia insisted on imposing became more stark as the evening progressed. While Emma demonstrated poise, social grace, and intellectual curiosity that engaged every adult at our table in meaningful conversation, Patricia continued to monitor our corner of the room with visible anxiety about potential embarrassments that never materialized. Patricia's disappointment in Emma's excellent behavior was becoming increasingly difficult to disguise. Her entire narrative about intellectual disability and social inappropriateness, challenged by the reality of her granddaughter's successful navigation of this sophisticated social environment. During the main course, a commotion arose near the head table that initially seemed like a minor service issue, but quickly escalated into a crisis that threatened to derail Patricia's carefully orchestrated celebration. Jennifer, Michael's wife, had developed what appeared to be a severe allergic reaction to something in the salmon dish, her face swelling rapidly while she struggled to breathe. The country club's staff moved quickly to summon emergency medical assistance, but the severity of Jennifer's reaction created immediate concern about her ability to maintain stable breathing until paramedics could arrive. Dr. Foster's professional instincts activated immediately, her medical training overriding any social hesitation about stepping into a family crisis uninvited. She moved swiftly toward the head table, identifying herself as a physician and requesting permission to assess Jennifer's condition while they waited for emergency responders. Patricia's panic was evident as she watched her perfectly planned celebration transform into a medical emergency that would become the evening's defining memory for every guest present. The medical crisis intensified when it became clear that Jennifer's allergic reaction was progressing rapidly toward anaphylactic shock, a life-threatening condition that required immediate intervention to prevent respiratory failure. Dr. Foster quickly determined that Jennifer needed epinephrine injection to counteract her allergic response. But the country club's first aid supplies didn't include the emergency medications necessary for treating severe allergic reactions. The nearest hospital was 15 minutes away, and Jennifer's breathing was becoming increasingly labored with each passing moment. Emma had been watching the medical emergency unfold with the kind of emotional intelligence and social awareness that adults often underestimated in children with intellectual disabilities. While the adults around the head table struggled with panic and uncertainty about how to help Jennifer, Emma quietly approached Dr. Foster with information that would prove crucial to resolving the crisis effectively. Dr. Amanda, my friend Katie at school has allergies like this, and her mom always keeps medicine in her purse that looks like a big pen. Should I ask people if they have that medicine for Jennifer? Dr. Foster's recognition of Emma's suggestion was immediate and professionally informed. Emma was describing an epinephrine autoinjector, the exact medication Jennifer needed to counteract her severe allergic reaction. While the adults had been focused on summoning professional medical assistance, Emma had identified a potential solution based on her experience with a classmate's similar medical condition. Dr. Foster quickly asked Emma to help identify any guests who might carry emergency allergy medications, turning Emma's social awareness and memory into critical assets for resolving the medical crisis. Emma moved through the dining room with purpose and confidence that surprised the adults who had spent the evening underestimating her capabilities and social competence. She approached guests politely but directly, explaining that Jennifer needed emergency allergy medicine and asking if anyone carried epinephrine injectors for their own medical conditions. Emma's clear communication, appropriate urgency, and respectful approach to strangers demonstrated social skills that were far more sophisticated than Patricia had ever acknowledged or appreciated. Within minutes, Emma had located Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell, a guest at table 12, who suffered from severe bee sting allergies and always carried 2 epinephrine autoinjectors in her evening purse as a precautionary measure. Mrs. Hartwell immediately provided one of her injectors to Dr. Foster, who administered the life-saving injection to Jennifer while paramedics were still en route to the country club. The epinephrine quickly began counteracting Jennifer's allergic reaction, stabilizing her breathing and reducing the facial swelling that had threatened her airway. The transformation in the dining room's atmosphere was immediate and profound. Jennifer's medical crisis had been resolved through Emma's quick thinking, social competence, and ability to connect information from her school experience with the emergency situation unfolding at her grandparents' anniversary celebration. The guests who had witnessed Emma's crucial role in identifying the solution began approaching our table to thank her personally for her helpfulness and to express their admiration for her presence of mind during a frightening medical emergency. Patricia's reaction to Emma's heroic intervention was complex and revealing, her emotions clearly torn between gratitude for her daughter-in-law's safety and discomfort with the way Emma's actions had completely undermined every assumption she had made about intellectual disability and social competence. Patricia approached our table as paramedics finished their assessment of Jennifer's condition and confirmed that the epinephrine injection had successfully stabilized her allergic reaction before it could progress to life-threatening complications. Emma, that was very helpful of you to think about allergy medicine, Patricia said, her voice carrying forced gratitude that struggled to mask her fundamental discomfort with acknowledging Emma's intelligence and social contribution. I suppose your experience at school with children who have medical problems gave you information that was useful tonight. Patricia's comment managed to simultaneously thank Emma while minimizing her achievement, suggesting that
Helpfulness was coincidental rather than demonstrating genuine problem-solving abilities and social awareness.
Dr. Foster's response to Patricia's qualified acknowledgement was immediate and professionally authoritative, her expertise lending weight to a defense of Emma's capabilities that could not be dismissed as family bias or emotional overstatement. Patricia, what Emma did tonight was remarkable. She connected information from her school experience with the current emergency situation, identified a potential solution that the adults hadn't considered, and then executed a plan to locate the necessary medication. That kind of critical thinking and social problem solving demonstrates intelligence and empathy and social competence that any parent should be proud to celebrate. The impact of Dr. Foster's professional assessment of Emma's actions rippled through the gathering guests who had witnessed the medical emergency and its resolution. Mrs. Hartwell, whose epinephrine injector had saved Jennifer's life, sought out Emma specifically to thank her for the role she had played in identifying the solution. "Young lady, if you hadn't thought to ask about allergy medicine, I might not have realized I could help. Your quick thinking probably saved that woman's life tonight. Your parents should be very proud of such a smart, caring daughter." Michael's gratitude toward Emma was profound and emotional, his recognition of her role in potentially saving his wife's life creating a moment of genuine connection between uncle and niece that transcended the social awkwardness that had characterized their relationship throughout Emma's childhood. "Emma, I don't know how to thank you for helping Jennifer tonight. You thought of something that none of us adults considered, and your actions might have saved her life. I'm so proud to be your uncle, and I'm sorry I haven't told you that before." Michael's apology carried implications that extended far beyond the evening's medical emergency, acknowledging years of passive complicity in Patricia's treatment of Emma and recognition that his silence had enabled discrimination against his niece based on prejudices about intellectual disability rather than assessment of her actual capabilities and contributions to family relationships. The medical crisis had revealed Emma's intelligence, empathy, and social competence in ways that could no longer be ignored or minimized by family members who had found it easier to accept Patricia's narrative about limitations rather than advocate for Emma's inclusion and recognition. Robert, my father, approached our table with tears in his eyes and emotions that he had clearly been suppressing throughout years of Patricia's systematic exclusion of Emma from family celebrations and recognition. "Emma, sweetheart, you were absolutely wonderful tonight. You helped save Jennifer, and you showed everyone here what a smart, caring person you are. Grandpa is so proud of you, and I should have told you that a long time ago." Robert's words carried the weight of regret for years of silent complicity in Patricia's treatment of Emma, recognition that his failure to advocate for his granddaughter had been cowardly and harmful. The ripple effects of Emma's heroic actions continued throughout the remainder of the anniversary celebration, as guests approached our table to express their admiration for Emma's quick thinking and to share their own experiences with family members who had intellectual disabilities or other differences that required understanding and inclusion rather than exclusion and shame. Dr. Foster spent considerable time discussing Emma's capabilities with other guests, her professional expertise providing authoritative contradiction to any lingering assumptions about intellectual disability and social competence. Emma handled the attention and praise with grace and humility that demonstrated her emotional maturity and social awareness, thanking people for their kind words while maintaining appropriate modesty about her role in resolving the medical emergency. "I'm just glad Jennifer is okay," Emma told each person who thanked her. "My friend Katie taught me about allergy medicine at school, so I knew it might help. I'm happy I could remember something useful when someone needed help." Patricia's increasing isolation became apparent as the evening progressed, and more guests learned about Emma's crucial role in identifying the solution to Jennifer's medical crisis. The narrative Patricia had spent years constructing about Emma's limitations and social inappropriateness crumbled in the face of demonstrated intelligence, empathy, and social competence that impressed every adult who witnessed it. Patricia's carefully curated social performance was undermined by the reality of her granddaughter's capabilities and the way her own prejudices had prevented her from recognizing Emma's potential contributions to family celebrations and relationships. The anniversary celebration concluded with dancing and continued socializing that allowed Emma to demonstrate her social skills in yet another context, engaging appropriately with adults who approached her with genuine interest and respect, rather than the condescending politeness that had characterized Patricia's interactions throughout the evening. Emma danced with David, with Robert, and with several family friends who requested the honor of a dance with the young hero who had helped save the evening from tragedy.
Dr. Foster used the dancing portion of the celebration to have an extended conversation with me about Emma's development, her educational program, and the importance of continued advocacy for inclusion and recognition of her capabilities. Rachel, Emma is a remarkable child with intelligence, empathy, and social skills that many neurotypical children would envy. Tonight proved that intellectual disability doesn't prevent meaningful contribution to family and community relationships. I hope this experience helps your family recognize Emma's true value and potential. As the evening wound down and guests began departing, Patricia found herself in the uncomfortable position of receiving congratulations not only for a successful anniversary celebration, but also for having such a wonderful granddaughter whose quick thinking and caring heart had impressed everyone present. Patricia's responses to these compliments were strained and uncomfortable. Her inability to genuinely celebrate Emma's achievements revealed the depth of her prejudices and the way her social anxieties had prevented her from recognizing her granddaughter's actual capabilities. The drive home from the Pinedale Country Club was filled with Emma's excited recounting of the evening's events, her joy in having participated meaningfully in a family celebration, and her satisfaction in having helped someone who needed assistance. Emma's happiness was pure and uncomplicated, untainted by awareness of the adult conflicts that had
Surrounded her inclusion or the significance of her actions in challenging family prejudices about intellectual disability and social worth. David and I processed the evening's events with a mixture of pride in Emma's heroic actions and anger about the years of exclusion and diminished expectations she had endured from family members who should have been her strongest advocates and supporters. Emma's performance at the anniversary celebration had definitively proven that Patricia's concerns about social appropriateness and intellectual limitations were based on prejudice rather than reality, that Emma's differences required understanding and accommodation rather than exclusion and shame. The weeks following the anniversary celebration brought significant changes in family dynamics and relationships that reflected the impact of Emma's heroic intervention and the way it had challenged long-held assumptions about intellectual disability and family inclusion. Michael began reaching out regularly, inviting Emma to spend time with Tyler and Madison and expressing genuine interest in her school activities, friendships, and achievements. These interactions revealed that Michael's previous distance had been largely influenced by Patricia's narrative about Emma's limitations rather than his own observations of her capabilities and social contributions. Robert also transformed his relationship with Emma, spending individual time with her that allowed him to discover her interests, intelligence, and delightful personality without Patricia's constant anxiety about behavioral problems or social embarrassment. Robert's growing relationship with Emma revealed his regret about years of passive compliance with Patricia's exclusionary attitudes and his recognition that fear of conflict with his wife had prevented him from advocating for his granddaughter's rightful place in family celebrations and relationships. Jennifer's recovery from her allergic reaction was complete and uncomplicated, but her gratitude toward Emma created a lasting bond between them that transcended the medical emergency that had brought them together. Jennifer began including Emma in family activities, recognizing her intelligence and social competence in ways that created opportunities for meaningful relationships between Emma and her cousins Tyler and Madison. These relationships flourished when freed from Patricia's anxieties about intellectual differences and social appropriateness. Patricia's response to the transformation in family dynamics was complex and resistant, her fundamental prejudices about intellectual disability unchanged despite overwhelming evidence of Emma's capabilities and social contributions. Patricia continued to view Emma's heroic actions at the anniversary celebration as coincidental rather than demonstrating genuine intelligence and problem-solving abilities, unable to process information that contradicted her deep-seated beliefs about intellectual limitations and social worth. However, Patricia's influence over family relationships and celebrations was permanently diminished by the events of the anniversary celebration and the way Emma's actions had revealed the prejudices and limitations in Patricia's own social judgment and family leadership. Other family members no longer automatically deferred to Patricia's assessments of Emma's capabilities or her recommendations for exclusion from family activities based on concerns about social appropriateness or behavioral problems. The anniversary celebration that Patricia had intended as a showcase of family success and social sophistication became instead a revelation of her own limitations, prejudices, and failure to recognize the intelligence, empathy, and social competence of her own granddaughter. Emma's heroic intervention had exposed who was truly embarrassing to the family, and it wasn't the 8-year-old girl with Down syndrome whose quick thinking and caring heart had potentially saved a life and impressed every adult who witnessed her actions. Emma's confidence and self-esteem flourished in the changed family environment, her recognition that she was valued and appreciated for her
Actual capabilities rather than pitied or excluded because of assumptions about intellectual limitations. The anniversary celebration had proven to Emma that she belonged in family gatherings, that her contributions were meaningful and appreciated, and that her differences were part of what made her special rather than something that required constant management or apology. The transformation of our family relationships following the anniversary celebration demonstrated the power of inclusion, recognition, and authentic acceptance in allowing people with intellectual disabilities to demonstrate their actual capabilities and make meaningful contributions to family and community relationships. Emma's heroic actions had not only potentially saved Jennifer's life, but had also saved our family from the poisonous effects of prejudice, exclusion, and the systematic underestimation of human potential based on neurological differences rather than character, intelligence, and heart. Years later, the anniversary celebration remained a defining moment in our family's history, the night when Emma's intelligence, empathy, and social competence were finally recognized and celebrated by people who had spent too long accepting limitations imposed by prejudice rather than revealed by actual observation and interaction. Patricia never fully overcame her discomfort with Emma's intellectual disability, but she could no longer ignore the evidence of Emma's capabilities or maintain her narrative about social inappropriateness and family embarrassment in the face of such overwhelming contradiction. Emma grew into adolescence and young adulthood with confidence in her own worth and capabilities, secure in the knowledge that her family valued her contributions and recognized her intelligence, empathy, and social competence. The foundation of self-esteem and family acceptance established during those crucial childhood years enabled Emma to advocate for herself, pursue her interests and goals, and build meaningful relationships based on mutual respect and genuine appreciation for her unique perspective and capabilities. The anniversary celebration had taught our entire family that true embarrassment comes not from intellectual differences or neurological variations, but from prejudice, exclusion, and the failure to recognize the inherent worth and potential of every family member regardless of their disabilities or differences. Emma's heroic actions had proven definitively who deserved to feel ashamed that evening, and it wasn't the brave, intelligent, caring 8-year-old whose quick thinking and compassionate heart had impressed everyone except the grandmother whose prejudices had blinded her to her own granddaughter's remarkable capabilities and beautiful character. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.